And I told them, go around to all the professionals. There were 7 professional firms involved, and ask them to take a haircut. First 180 million was going to be for fees. It's rarely that you can get them to pay all the fees up front, 180 million. So he went around to all the professionals, accounting firms, law firms, they all said, no, we're not going to take a haircut. And he was due 90 million in fees. And so he kept the 31 million, and the rest of the 180 million, 150 million disappeared into cyberspace. Like magic. It left bank A, where you guys live, and it never got to bank B and C somehow. And the people that were in charge of that retired. And so then PwC and all these guys, and he lived in the penthouse of the Four Seasons in Kuala Lumpur. Before I met him, he lived like King Farouk. $30,000 dinners. He lived large, in addition to him weighing 445 pounds. And I said, you should move to Singapore, Simon. Why do I have to leave? Because they're going to be on you like stink on shit. He moved to Singapore just ahead of the professionals' lawyers. And he said, how did you know, Dan? When I tell you the motherfucking sun's not coming up tomorrow morning, the motherfucking sun's not coming up tomorrow morning. Now when I tell him it's going to rain, he takes an umbrella even if there's sunshine in Singapore. Because I know. And so he was the only guy that got paid on a $3 billion deal. When I tell you your cousins are going to steal from you, well, you already know that. Most people won't lie on tax return, except in the Middle East and Asia. But if it's a heads up, forgive the expression, a white man deal, then they won't lie. They'll be plus or minus 10%. Then you can move forward. And the tax returns weren't. But I mean, after 3 Crater deals, I mean, John just wondered, he was up on the verge of suicide, most people aren't that different. The worst case, we had a deal, the 7th deal went through finally. 7th deal. We'd run up almost $1 million with the accounting firms. 6 dead deals rolls forward. We had been with 3 different law firms that started with us, quit. And I personally took the check to the accountants. I had to continue, not the bullshit, but continue to say it was a great deal, And it was a great deal. But 3 Crater deals is a lot. Fortunately, the first accountant and lawyer quit on the first deal. They weren't with us on Crater 2 and Crater 3. We did our own due diligence in accounting. Never got to legal. In the third one, I said, okay, we don't need any more internal practice. Let's just make sure it gets done. And that's why it was only a little less than $200,000 for the accountants and lawyers. But I mean, if we hadn't had a bench of many lawyers and many accountants, they couldn't have got done the last few days of the year. Because a lot of the firms, the smaller firms, unfortunately, although they could get a deal done in July, August, September, that's easy peasy. But getting a deal done the last 8 days of December is hard. You've got to have a bunch of people that you can depend on to get stuff done. They'd have done it before to get the stuff done. And so, but if we had been paying them all along, we already had some firms quit. Comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Just a clarification, when he says 5% was seller's note not serviceable, so...
Okay, the SBA, they made him put up 5%. Actually, the federal statute says 100% guaranteed by the government. But the bank wants hooking somebody. So he put up 5% of $2.4 million. But he had the seller sign a note, long-term note, 10-year note. So he really put up 15% at the end of 10 years, accruing interest but not payable interest. So the bank really got 20% down. 15% that is, if the loan defaults or it gets paid off. But the buyer put up 5% and he had it personally guaranteed. SBA won't do deals in America unless somebody personally guarantees. Yeah.
So when I did the SBA deal, the SBA requires 10% minimum.
No, that's bullshit.
But the seller can put 5%
but
on your behalf.
The SBA doesn't require any minimum. You read the federal statutes, 100% guaranteed by the federal government. The bank doesn't like you. That's why they want money from you. They don't like you, the deal, or your board, or how you shave your bald head. But the law says 100% federally guaranteed. And we have kids doing it. Not many, but we have kids. Yeah.
Last time SBA asked for, as a personal guarantee, life insurance.
Is that in lieu of a personal guarantee or in addition to a personal guarantee?
No, I said I'm not going to give any guarantee, so they said 5.
Okay, well, I'm surprised. You must have charmed them or something. They can do that. You can put up a bond. In addition, you can put up a bond, and if you default, they pay off the bond, and the bond is normally collateralized by something. Then you can't just buy a bond for $2.4 million. It's not collateralized by something. Well, I mean, it depends what you sign. Implicit in what you sign may be you're guaranteeing it with your business. I don't know. I'd have to look at the docs. But normally it's cash, but they accept the seller's note as equity. They accepted, this bank wanted 20%. He only had to put up 5, but 15 was put up by a note by the seller. I'm not saying I'd be happy if the seller got fucked for 15%, but I'd be happy if the seller got fucked for 15% because I know who the seller is. Slimeball piece of shit. But you can avoid all this shit. Just say next. But after 3 creator deals, that's like after 3 bad divorces, you either never get married again or your 4th is a bad marriage. That's just, that's just the way it is. The doctor was happy as Larry that he found somebody. And then he spent all this time with his bank that fucked him around, got sold. Fucking how naive can a dick doctor getting sold by a pair of tits? Jesus Christ. Just imagine you. He looks at that all day long, every day, and he gets sold by a big pair of tits that weren't real. I can just imagine you little shits that haven't had your willy wet in fucking 5 years. You probably come on the fucking papers. Men think with the wrong head. When my mother told me that when I was about 15, I didn't know exactly what she meant. It was with the same, you go to bed with dog's day and you get up with fleas. I better understood that. Men are easy to sell. Fuck. Of course, I'm different. I'm above it all. I say that and Sally would laugh. There was another hand up. So the moral of the story there is I would have said next, but after 3 deals, I said yes. It's like your daughter, her first 2 marriages crater. She got our daughter's never been, but she's got, she has poor taste in men. I got a cousin like this. And you delude yourself, I want my cousin to be happy. So you bullshit yourself into knowing this guy's a piece of shit too. We can decide anything's right for us, or we just don't collect all the information. And we listen to the information that we want to listen to. We don't listen to necessarily the right information. But it's a good deal. It's a dynamite deal that almost didn't happen, but it did happen. And probably 50% of the deals you kids do almost didn't happen, but it did happen because you just, you didn't give up. And he's got daughters and it's Christmas and all kind of shit, was applied, the pressure. Now that never meant anything to me. I didn't care about that. But I wanted to show you one that, all these, because you're going to hear a bunch of these, it's easy and peasy and the money just flows to me. Okay, well, we're going to look at a couple that it was tough sled, but it's done. So now that he said, when I look back upon it, it was fun. Well, 7-8 weeks had passed when he looks back upon it. But when for 7 hours had passed, he was, thank God it got done. But time has, somebody told me it's a long time, time has a healing, you forget. And that's why Sally says that I've gotten softer in the last 15, 20 years. You can't find a banker that says that. You can't find a lawyer that says that. Somehow I can garner up the old hate in me for professionals, and I can jump down their throats very easily. And I will neither confirm nor deny that I drug investment bankers across conference tables, slap lawyers, but there are people in New York, LA, Chicago, and London. If they haven't retired and they're not dead or they're not in jail, they don't have dementia, will remember me as a young guy. I was a fucking psychopath. Legend has it, I flew across from Los Angeles to London because an investment banker was going to change a deal. And I drug him by his tie allegedly drug him by his tie across the conference table into a drinks table. Legend has it. Any other questions? Hey, well, are you married? I don't care if you're sleeping together. I should have a 6 and a 6:30. Based on, so then you must be 6:30, young lady. Okay, and then dinner or drinks are at 7. Oh, the papers I passed out to you. The 2 or 3 pages are a quality of earnings, penultimate draft, the next to the last draft from a big accounting firm on a healthcare deal. And when you're having their quality of earnings, another thing about banks, they're going to do their own quality of earnings. You want to do a quality of earnings. In other words, is the EBITDA real? That's what a quality of earnings is. The EBITDA real. But any of the big banks will do their own quality of earnings. This happens to be our quality of earnings on our own deal. And when they start the quality of earnings, you want to tell them, I don't want to see red flags, because by the time they come across a red flag, it's too late. You're not inclined to back out of a deal, 4 days before it closes. So you want to see amber flags. You want to see anything that looks suspicious. You want to see any hiccups whatsoever, even if it's in the first week. And so that's a next to the last draft of the quality earnings, and that deal closed. The other thing, we'll talk more about it during the week, are a quasi spreadsheet of industries that some of you guys did last year. And it's pretty accurate, but it gives you some idea. But healthcare. I know the 15-year-old did a television media deal, but healthcare. I know Marcus has done $400 or $500 million in property, healthcare. I don't give a shit about all these other guys. You're going to hear Simon Bell, 3.6 billion, energy. I mean, healthcare. Because for everyone I got like that, I got 50 healthcare deals. And the big deals, and we're going to talk about the deals, how I've described the $750,000 to $1.5 million. Then we're going to talk about elephant hunting, 10, 20, 30, $40 million deals, pound deals. Then we're going to talk about dinosaur hunting, the big motherfuckers, the billions. But generational wealth is built of a series of transactions. You do a $3.5 billion deal. Of course, Simon just did a $1.2 billion deal, and he just did a $300 million deal. But I do not recommend a $3 billion deal out of the blocks. I just don't. There's so many things. One of the things when you do stuff in the Middle East and the South Pacific, etc., you're going to have governments involved. Okay, when did your government come into power? When's the next election? And you've got 7 different governments. No, I'm not asking. You got 7 different governments, and then they got a coup. You can't plan for a coup. I did with Miramar, but anyway, I knew that government was going to topple. And so you got a lot of moving parts that you have. Forget you got no control. You got the opposite of control. So your guy's the guy that just stepped down as energy minister. So what? And he makes all kinds of promises. Normally he makes the promises the last 6 or 12 months of his reign, and then he can't keep any of them when he gets thrown out. And his brother's supposed to take over. Or his cousin. Of course, they call everybody cousin there. That doesn't mean they're cousin. It's just there's too many moving parts. And the bank, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, Barclays, Goldman Sachs, all wants to build secondary and tertiary solar shit. Today, 9 months from now, after you've bought all the property, after you've convinced all the little islanders to sell the shit, they decide they're overinvested in that part of the world. And you spend 6, 7, 8, 20, 40 million for nothing. You owe the banks $1.8 million. You owe the accountants $900,000. And one of the things you're going to hear Simon say, the biggest thing he realized is when he did his third big deal, what the government say publicly and what they really intend to do are two diametrically opposed things. Same with government here. Unless you get the signed contract, and that doesn't mean spit, money in the bank, funds transferred. I don't believe anybody that says anything. And some of the politicians, those guys are politicians on those that run those islands, etc. Some of them, 1 in 10, their intention is actually honorable. They really want to help with solar and this kind of stuff. But the other 9 out of 10, not. They're there to line their pockets. We don't have it on the webinar now, but another webinar that we used to, have Simon, the day we called to do a webinar with him, and he's got the bottle of whiskey, and he said, I had planned on opening this when I did my first deal. Coincidentally, Dan, I just wired into my account $32.1 million, which is the first tranche of the first tranche of the first tranche. 30 million out of 180 million out of 2 billion 6. And I told him, and he's opening the bottle, and the kids that were in the room were all excited. I was excited for him, but I had already discussed with him that I believe the administrations were changing. The sands of time were changing. And I told him, go around to all the professionals. There were 7 professional firms involved, and ask them to take a haircut. First 180 million was going to be for fees. It's rarely that you can get them to pay all the fees up front, 180 million. So he went around to all the professionals, accounting firms, law firms, they all said, no, we're not going to take a haircut. And he was due 90 million in fees, and so he kept the 31 million, and the rest of the 180 million, 150 million disappeared into cyberspace. Like magic. It left Bank A, where you guys live, and it never got to bank B and C somehow. And the people that were in charge of that retired. And so then PwC and all these guys, and he lived in the penthouse of the Four Seasons in Kuala Lumpur. Before I met him, he lived like King Farouk. $30,000 dinners. He lived large. In addition to him weighing 445 pounds. And I said, you should move to Singapore, Simon. Why do I have to leave? Because they're going to be on you like stink on shit. He moved to Singapore just ahead of the professionals' lawyers. And he says, how did you know, Dan? When I tell you the motherfucking sun's not coming up tomorrow morning, the motherfucking sun's not coming up tomorrow morning. Now when I tell him it's going to rain, he takes an umbrella even if it's sunshine in Singapore. Because I know. And so he was the only guy that got paid on that $3 billion deal. When I tell you your cousins are going to steal from you, well, you already know that. You already know that. But I just know. I don't have a good feeling about Ukraine, unfortunately. But we're going to see some guys that have done elephant and dinosaurs in the next few days. Some big deals. But I told them, explain about the deals that failed. Don't just tell them all the whipped cream and cherries on top. And how long Simon's going to say this deal didn't come through. I had to pay the lawyers $500,000 out of my own pocket because they don't do delayed fees on these multi-billion-dollar deals. One, they won't do it without a signed contract and some money in the pipeline coming their way. And in this example I just gave you, 180 million, the first tranche in the room, in that room, all excited. He was opening it up and he showed it to the thing, 31 million. And fuck, this must be easy. And then the second, third, fourth, fifth tranche never came. And more of those big deals, that's what happens. The second, third, and I used to think, or Costa Grasos. They're just luring us in. And then our turn to put up money. Normally it's 8 times more than they put up. And then the money disappears. So I believe the old man. I believe him when he told me stuff like that. So then when I tell you, that's a bullshit that, PwC will pay, Goldman Sachs will pay, and your dreams they'll pay. Any questions? You don't have to do anything with the quality of earnings. If you have questions tomorrow, and I'll speak to you after dinner briefly. If there's no more questions, I'll see you at 5:30 in 20 minutes. But is there any questions from anybody? Okay, kids. Oh, in the back, yes.
You said that with the regional directors, we have to manage them. But what?
Well, okay. When you said
yes, the regional when we have
original or regional?
Regional directors.
REG or original? OR.
Well, we have done 5 acquisitions and we have 1 regional director for the 5 acquisitions.
No, okay. You got for every, well, it depends, but I mean, you have a regional manager, if you want to call him that. Okay, not direct. Okay, that manages 4 or 5 units. Could be 2 or 3 units. It could be 10 or 12 units, depending on the business. And then you, as the CEO or whatever you want to call yourself, have to manage those regional managers.
Yes, that is my question.
Okay,
we do it or the CEO?
Well, I mean, assuming you're not the CEO does, not you. You don't do shit. 95% of your time is looking for deals and money. You're like a pimp. You're looking for somebody to sleep with your girls. That'll stick with you longer than the other example. You're like a regional pimp. I remember during the gas embargo, it was 73 or 78, I had one of the first cell phones, independent cell phone in the United States. But in Los Angeles, it was still analog or something, and you had party lines. So in other words, there'd be 3 or 4 people on the same line. I'm driving to work at 4 o'clock in the morning, and a pimp from South Central LA is calling one of his girls, who was in Hermosa Beach at the time, and said he wanted her to come up to the, I think it was the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. And she says, I work too fucking hard for my monies, and I'm not going to sit in a goddamn gasoline line for some John who's not even going to give me the right kind of money. Meaning it was $300, he should give her $500, $200 tip or something like that. I'm told. I don't really understand that part of the market, but I'm told that. And he got 15, 20 girls out there that you're managing. Well, managing prostitutes is like managing cats, herding cats, and doctors. Remind me to tell you the doctor stories. Our Hungarian Forrest Gump has 400 doctors, 200 full-time docs and 200 part-time docs in his hospital. And the first day he had, not complaint day, but from 8 till 10 in the morning on Tuesday and Friday, if you had questions about the new administration, you wanted to talk to the hospital administrator, you went to see Peter. And there's 300 people in line, all docs. So half of the part-time docs showed up for line and all the full-time docs. And they had 9,000 questions. And he said that he doesn't do that now. He's the CEO of the holding company, as he'll tell you, and he's not the CEO of all the hospitals and all the fertility clinics and all that. But one of the reasons docs, even though it's easy in the beginning to get shit done, they can't make a decision. They might be able to make a decision to put a clamp on this vein or whatever, but that's the extent of their decision-making power. And anesthesiologists have a different reason why they're not successful. But when anybody dies on the table, it's the anesthesiologist's fault. It's not the surgeon's fault. And I know all this because I've been in these hospital things for so many years, and unless their hand is on the clamp, they will not take responsibility. There is ancillary, supplementary, complementary reasons why the fucker died on the table, but unless his knife, it put it in the heart by accident, it's never the doc's fault, never. And so, but getting back to your question, you will have regional managers, but it's not you, it's the CEO that should manage them.